This is what brings you almost all of your fitness results. Yet people focus on everything else. What actually matters seems boring to us. We've already heard it plenty of times. We want to have the new thing. Our shiny object addicted brain wants new tricks and tactics. However, they never truly work or are just a repackaging of timeless principles. In this video, I want to teach you how to come back to the basics of fitness and focus on the things that actually matter, so your journey goes much smoother with less confusion, headaches, and complications. One thing about humans is that they tend to overcomplicate things. We tend to ignore what actually matters for what is shiny and what is new. We ignore fundamental principles for quick tactics. We have something called the appeal to novelty, which is when we tend to go towards novel things and accept them just because they're new. We are wired to look for new things. It is how we survived. But in a world where novel stimuli is readily available, this way of thinking and working doesn't serve us anymore. There's so much novelty out there that we don't know which information to listen to and utilize into our lives. I know a few people where I see this happen in real time. The first person I remember was a friend of mine in my early days of high school. We met at 12 years old but kept talking until we were 15 and a half. Now, during the summer of 2020, when I was a few months into my fitness journey, we started playing Fortnite together almost daily. And for some reason, we started talking about fitness and health. So at the time, I had acquired a bit of knowledge about it. I loved to speak about it because it was the thing that I was obsessed with. And he got hyped about it because, well, I was doing it. Next thing I remember is that a few days after our conversation started, he also wanted to start his own fitness journey like I had. And he started sending me links to websites and more specifically to the protein powder they sold. At the time, I knew these things could definitely help, but they weren't necessary, especially for a guy who just started out. What struck me was that he was focused on buying things that didn't matter, but seemed important in his mind because of marketing. He was focused on shiny objects instead of core principles. Another instance where I saw overcomplication in a fitness journey was with a different friend of mine. Now, he has been going to the gym on and off, but he truly wants to be consistent with it. The issue I see every single time he starts out again after a 3-week period of not going is having a detailed plan. Now, this might sound counterintuitive because having a plan is a very good idea, and I agree. However, it becomes a bad thing when this plan is too long, too detailed, or too complicated. In general, when we are inconsistent with something we used to be more consistent with, we feel the need to do more in order to catch up on the days or the weeks we have missed. This is something that was happening here. He felt like he had to catch up on the weeks he had missed by making a very complicated and advanced training program, when all this will do is burn you out and make you quit again. A plan is vital, but a plan made emotionally is a bad idea. I've seen multiple people overcomplicate their fitness journey to different extents, and I know you probably do the same things. We're all guilty of it to some degree. We all somewhat suffer from shiny object syndrome or the appeal to novelty. It is normal. The world is trying to grab our attention and monetize this innate nature of us. This video is to set you back on the right path, eliminate the BS you focus on, and make you focus back again on the important things. If you're a guy between 18 and 30 and you've been looking for a channel that gives you quality fitness and health education, look no further because this is the channel for you. I'll admit, I'm not the biggest, I'm not the leanest, I'm not the strongest either, I don't have the sharpest jawline. However, I did start like you, and I did face a lot of struggles along the way. Through struggle, I learned a lot, and I'll try my best to provide you with the best education that I can. So that being said, let's talk about what truly matters in a fitness journey and how to avoid BS. There's a famous principle which is called the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule. There are many areas in which this principle applies. Business, finances, agriculture, geography, but also fitness and health. The 80-20 rule, its more popular name, is when 80% of outcomes come from 20% of the causes. In business, 20% of clients bring 80% of revenue, or 20% of products bring 80% of revenue, or 20% of sales reps bring close 80% of clients. In crime, for example, 20% of criminals will commit 80% of the crimes. There's many different areas in which this applies to. In fitness or body transformations, we can apply this principle as well. There's only a few key things that really matter to get most of your results. Many people like to call this the 80-20 rule. I like to call it focus on the fundamentals. People are often aware of this principle. However, what people are not so often aware of is that there's different layers and levels to this. There's multiple levels where we can apply that principle, and those are the macro layer, the meso layer, and the micro layer. We'll cover each of them and apply them specifically for fitness and health. So, the macro layer. The macro layer is the largest one. It's the one that covers the biggest principles of any area. In a business, for example, we know that the product or the service and the marketing will be the two most important things. Of course, other things are important as well, but if you just focus on having an excellent product or service and you focus on marketing that product or service to people, you will already get very far. In the process of achieving a body transformation, you will only truly need training, nutrition, and recovery. Different variables like testosterone optimization and so on don't have as much impact on whether you achieve a great physique or not. It isn't dependent on those factors specifically. It just depends on how hard you train, how well you diet, and how well you recover so you can train harder the next time. When we think about the focus on fundamentals rule, we should only be focused on those three variables and nothing else if we want to have most of the results with the least amount of effort put in. This is for the macro layer. Then we have the meso layer. The meso layer is everything right below the macro layer. So if the macro layer was made of training, nutrition, and recovery, the question now is, which key variables will yield the most results within each of those categories? Not every training variable will have equal impact, and not all exercises will have the same amount of impact on muscle growth. Within nutrition, we also have a few key principles or a few key variables that have the most amount of impact. Let's imagine your goal is to lose weight, fat preferably. Your biggest focus will be nutrition. What are the few key variables within nutrition that will really move the needle and have the biggest impact on your weight loss? I'll let you choose between the things in this list. Managing micronutrients, getting the right macronutrients in, getting the right amount of calories in, doing intermittent fasting, consuming weight loss juices, taking weight loss supplements, and the quality of the foods. If you chose getting the right amount of calories in and getting the right amount of macronutrients in, you are correct. Now, does that mean that the other things are not important? Of course not. But purely from a weight loss perspective, getting the right amount of calories and the right amount of macronutrients in is the most important thing. If you have a goal of being as healthy as possible whilst also trying to lose weight, then the quality of the foods you eat will also be very important. Now, some of the less important factors that I mentioned can also have an indirect impact on weight loss. For example, doing intermittent fasting on its own doesn't help with weight loss. However, skipping a meal can help you consume less calories, which will then result in more weight loss. It wasn't the intermittent fasting that mattered, but the reduction in calories you got from skipping a meal. Same with weight loss juices. It isn't the juice itself, but the fact that it's often very low in calories and makes you feel full for longer, which then means you'll consume less calories. Now we do have one last layer, which is the micro layer. The micro layer is used less often than the meso layer simply because we can't always go deeper and deeper, and because there are certain limits. One area where the micro layer is applicable is recovery. Recovery was one of the variables within the macro layer. Within the meso layer, the key variables for recovery are sleep. Your entire goal should be on sleeping better because this has the most impact on your recovery. It isn't warm-cold therapy or that massage device. Sleep is what truly matters. Now, within the micro level, which key variables will maximize and optimize your sleep? The answer isn't that exciting new supplement you can take or that sleep app that plays binaural beats and helps you sleep better. The reality is that, like I said before, it's often the boring, unexciting stuff that really matters. It's about dialing in your circadian rhythm by going to bed and waking up at the same exact time. It's about not looking at screens, eating a big meal, or drinking caffeine too close to your bedtime. It's often the boring stuff that matters and really has an effect. Getting jacked mostly comes down to three things: training, nutrition, and recovery. Good training for muscle growth comes down to enough intensity, enough volume, and choosing the 20% of exercises that bring the most results, usually compound lifts. Nutrition comes down to caloric intake, macronutrient intake, and food quality. And recovery comes down to good sleep. When we go back to the basics and focus on the fundamentals, we realize that our journey doesn't have to be as confusing or complicated. We can relax more and enjoy the process without caring too much about all the useless advice and new tactics and tricks we constantly get bombarded with. Just focus on fundamentals, stop wasting your time looking at useless weight loss advice. Just focus on getting your calories in, your macronutrients in, and getting good high quality foods in. Training, same thing. Recovery, same thing. Focus on fundamentals. Try and keep that principle in mind when you go about your journey, because it can save you a lot of time, money, and headaches.